Good evening, everyone. Am I visible to all of you guys? I think there's some issue. Just give me 1 minute. Uh, just a minute. Just a minute. Great. Great. So yeah, good evening, everyone. My name is Rahul, as you guys know. So आज जो है, I will be talking about test taking strategies. I will not be writing the actual mock today. We'll do that very soon, probably hopefully from the next week onwards. Right now, some of you have already started giving mocks, which is a very nice thing. Some of you would be starting very soon, and therefore I think that is the idea of giving this mock, because you guys also would have some would have by now made some kind of a strategy. You would know what is working for you, you would know what is not working for you. So feel free to write that in the chat box as well. So we can also discuss that. Broadly, I will be talking about a few things. Number one is my experience. So whenever someone tells you a strategy to go about CAT, you have to understand everyone has a personal bias towards different topics in different sections. So just to set the tone clear about that as to what my biases are and therefore what my experience is. I will also be touching about upon sectional strategy. So I'll very briefly be talking about each of the sections: VARC, LRDI, and Quant. What I also have is I have my answer key or the answer sheet from CAT 2021, in which I just managed to get 100 percentile. I will also be sharing that with you, just to run you very quickly, run you through how CAT was and what was going on while I was writing that exam. So how the strategies that I talk about, how I kind of try to implement them during the actual CAT exam, what worked for me, what not. So very briefly, I'll be doing that as well. And overall, how or what are the things that you can look at while trying to build a score, what should be the target scores, things like these. So that is the plan broadly for today, right? Yeah. So see, a general question that has started popping up, and I think on a daily basis, one or two students would send up this message. And please, Abhishek has retracted the message, but okay, you have to understand. It happens with almost everyone. While you are not, while you're giving the paper, the timer gets onto your head, right? And questions nahi ho pate. When you are done with the timer and you try to attempt those questions after the exam, you'll see that a lot more questions are happening. There are two things here that you have to understand. Number one is when you are attempting a question after you're done with the mock, you probably have invested some time in that question already, right? And therefore, when you say that I was able to solve a question in 1 minute, there is a very good chance that you put in 3-4 minutes prior to it as well. So you have tried things that are not working, and therefore towards the end, once you're done with the paper, the pressure is off. You're able to solve it in a minute. But again, don't. I'm not saying that is the only reason, but that is one of the reasons. So do not take this very seriously in the sense that एग्जाम के बाद मेरे से 15 क्वेश्चन हो जाते हैं तब 5 ही हो पाए. देखो तुमने थोड़ा समय कुछ क्वेश्चंस पे लगा दिया था, and therefore that is happening. That is one reason. The second reason is, yes, time. When you talk of CAT and you say it is a common aptitude test, A could very well stand for attitude as well. If I give you the CAT paper, I'm very sure everyone will be able to solve the entire paper. The challenge is some of you would do it in 2 hours, some in 3, some in 5 days. So you have to tune yourself to the fact that you are supposed to do the paper in those 2 hours. Therefore, I think one thing that you should do is be very clear of your target marks. If I am someone who's suppose scoring a 70 right now, so what I'm saying is, suppose my score right now is 70 or say 60. out of the 198 or whatever it is, right? And I try to attempt 15 questions in QA. That does not make sense. There is a very good chance that my QA score would be somewhere around 20-25. So even if I'm trying to do 10 questions, that would be an improvement over my previous score. So once you are able to reach that level, from there on you try to increase it further. A lot of times we are trying to attempt the entire paper, and therefore we get into that pressure. But if I know that, okay, in say the VARC section, I'm just supposed to attempt 2 passages, all of a sudden you have a lot of time for those passages, and therefore you will be able to fit in those 2 passages without getting without panicking unduly. All right. Another question that comes up is, I am scoring well in sectionals, but in full paper, I don't know what happens. Again, a very valid problem. I think the problem what happens is, and I'll share a story also with you. This happened in CAT 2000, and I think it was 15. The first time IIM Ahmedabad came out with the pattern that we have right now. So VARC, LRDI, and QA wala pattern, 100 questions. So this was, I think, in CAT 2015. So one of my students who was banking on LRDI and QA sections went to write the exam. She did decently in VARC, or so she thought. But again, this was not what she was targeting on. LRDI, she was able to attempt very few sets. I think 2.5 odd sets got solved out of 8. And therefore, she ended up not doing well in this section. When the final result came out, she had a 99 percentile in LRDI, but her percentile in QA had dropped to less than 85. And therefore, her overall percentile dropped to less than 90. When you're giving the paper, you do not know what is happening. Of course, there is always this thing that students come out and say it was easy, it was difficult. But see, if you are actually giving the paper and you are a student in the sense that it is your first attempt or second attempt, you may not be in the position to gauge how difficult or easy the paper was. And therefore, first of all is increase your sitting to 2 hours. Get into that mode where whenever you sit down to study, you are doing high intensity preparation for 2 hours on the trot, and then take a break. Then again sit for 2 hours, take a break. Right? That break could be whatever your day permits. I'm not saying ki bhai pure din baithe hue. But yes, that 2 hour has to become a habit, so you do not drain out mentally. Also, whenever you're giving sectional tests, I would request you to give 3 sectionals at a time. 3 sectionals at a time. So you have to start looking at the paper as 3 different papers that you are giving in 40 minutes each. Whatever happens in English stays there. It does not go into my LRDI section. Similarly, whatever happens in LRDI does not go into my QA section. Of course, it is very easy to say this, but you have to understand, you have to get used to it. Otherwise, in the exam, you will panic. All right. So just getting on with what I had to say. So in terms of my experience, as far as I am concerned, I was someone who was able to finish off my preparation in about June. As a student, I was done with my preparation in by I think May or June, and therefore from there I sat down. I sat down to prepare or write mocks, and I was writing mocks almost I was writing mocks bi-weekly. That is, in 2 weeks, fortnight, I was writing 1 mock. Now, a lot of students wait for their syllabus to complete before they start writing the exam. I think I can make a blanket statement and say here, you will never be able to complete your syllabus. वो नहीं ही होगा, और अगर हो भी जाएगा, you will not be very comfortable with all the sections. So don't wait for it now. Start working on the strategy as well. Because please understand, a score of maybe 70 out of 198 will get you a 90-92 plus percentile. This might actually be higher as well, but yes, you will end up in this percentile, and this means you will end up with some or the other IIM. Of course, it might not be IIM Ahmedabad, but यार देखो ठीक ठाक कॉलेज तो मिल ही जाएगा. And therefore, इतना syllabus तो आता है, English तो आती है, English नहीं आती, Maths तो आती होगी, LRDI का DI section तो कर लेंगे. And therefore, what I'm trying to say is, don't wait for you to finish the syllabus. If you have been preparing, तो इतना सिलेबस अभी तक हो गया होगा कि आप मॉक्स चालू कर सकते हैं. इफ यू हैव बीन प्रिपेयरिंग यू वुड बी डन विद इनफ सिलेबस टू एटलीस्ट स्टार्ट द मॉक्स. ठीक है, आई विल नॉट स्कोर 110 in the mock, I'll target a 50 sort of a score, right? So start giving mocks now, because it is already August. You have about 2 clear months left in between, and then the month of November. If you delay it further, you will not have enough time to uh, test a strategy, right? And when you go into the paper, you want to be sure of what you will do. 1.5 hours के बाद ब्रेन ड्रेन हो जाता है बेटा. ब्रेन ड्रेन तो आदत वाली बात है, तो इसीलिए सिट फॉर 2 hours. मैं वही कह रहा हूँ, जब whenever you're preparing, sit for 2 hours and study, right, at one go. तो आदत हो जाएगी 2 घंटे बैठने की. Once you are closer to the exam, make sure you are sitting for 2 hours in the time when your slot is given. So if you get the morning slot, don't study the entire night. Get up in the morning, and during the slot that you will be giving the exam, sit and study, sit and solve a mock. Similarly for the afternoon slots and for the evening slots. So my experience was, see, in VARC section, I tended to prefer VA. Now, when we were giving the exam was a little different. It was almost equally divided amongst VA and RC, and therefore even if you took up one section out of this, you would clear the overall cutoffs. And therefore I tended to go towards VA. The advantage with VA is it is less time consuming. If I have suppose 4 minutes left in the paper, right, in the VARC section, 36 minutes are gone. I have one RC left, and I have say 3 VA questions remaining. There is a possibility I might be able to pull this off. RC last के 3 minute में नहीं हो पाएगी. Also, VA takes lesser amount of time. So even if it is a question which I will not be able to solve, I will know within 1.5 minutes, I'll be sure whether वो हो रहा है या नहीं हो रहा है, right? RC में कभी-कभी issue हो जाता है that you read the RC, you put in 5-6 minutes and they realize यार ये समझ तो आई नहीं. And therefore I tended to side with VA. Anyone who is struggling getting a score in English, I would strongly recommend that start practicing VA as well, because that kind of gets neglected. And make sure that you attempt 5-6 questions out of that in the given format, because it is theta. As it is, there is no negative marking. So if you are attempting all the VA questions and getting 4 or 5 right, you can be sure that आपका 15 score तो बन ही जाएगा. So even if you crack just one RC, you are sure of scoring at least 25 to 30. Students who are doing well in the section would know that as it is, you are trying to attempt almost all the questions, and because VA as a question does not take too much time, you would be attempting it in any case. Second, because I am not someone who's good at math. Actually, I'm not someone who's good at English either, but yeah, math is worse. So arithmetic was something that I had made my own, in the sense that I used to prefer doing questions from arithmetic. तो अगर ग्रुप पे भी तुम लोग देखते हो ना, अरिथमेटिक का क्वेश्चन आता है, मैं जल्दी रिप्लाई करता हूँ क्योंकि मुझे लगता है वो आती है. जैसे ऐसे मैक्सिमम मिनिमम लॉग आते हैं ना, आई जस्ट वेट फॉर अदर्स टू रिप्लाई कि आ जाएगा तो ठीक है, नहीं तो ट्राई कर लेंगे. Point being, arithmetic was something that, again, arithmetic will form at least 1/3 of the paper in any CAT examination, no matter how difficult the paper is. So if you are conversant with arithmetic, now it could be algebra for you, it could be a combination of number system and geometry for you. But if there is one section where you are sure that you will be able to score, every single time that score of 20-22 you will reach in the section. So if I start the math section and I feel मेरे से questions नहीं हो रहे, for example, this happened in CAT 2019 it was, or it was I think CAT 2019, CAT 2020. So CAT 2020, what happened was I started the paper. The first question was an arithmetic question, I solved it. Then there was a log question I did not know. Then there was a functions question I did not know how to solve. And then there was again some algebra question I did not know how to solve. So in the first about 5 to 7 minutes, I had attempted one question, and the next 3 questions I had no idea about. But please understand, because I knew that after this there will be at least 7 or 8 arithmetic questions which I will be able to solve, I was okay. I did not panic. Otherwise, almost 1/4 of my time was gone in the paper, and all I had was 3 marks, right? So you have to know what your core area is around which you will be able to repeat a score. For me, it was arithmetic. It could be different for everyone, but please identify your core area. Similarly, amongst LRDI, very nice, Anusruti. In LRDI, I used to prefer DI. DI for the simple reason that answer to I जाए. It might take time, but I will always get the answer. Even this year, in slot one, that is CAT 2021, slot one, I started with the paper. There was one question on logical reasoning. I'll come to section wise, whatever things that I can suggest, I'll come to that. But I started with the LRDA section. The first set that I had was a was a juice wala set. So there were multiple cases that were being found. For some reason, I thought I'll be able to do the entire paper. I started with it. I spent about 12 minutes on that set. मेरे से क्रैक नहीं हो रहा था. I was able to crack maybe one question or two questions, but वो नहीं हो रहा था. That set I think had 6 questions, right? So or whatever. So at this point in time, when I am seeing that almost 1/3 of the time is gone, and all I have is 6 marks on the board, the first thing that I do was I look for a DI set. The moment I got the DI set, that DI set happened in the next 5 odd minutes, and I knew I had 12 marks in the bank. So with that 18 marks, I would cross 90 percentile in LRDI section for sure, right? So again, as I said, the core area for me in English was VA, arithmetic in maths, and DI in LRDI section. So if the section bombed in the first half time or in the first 1/3 time, if I was not able to solve questions, I would then just start looking for my core areas, right? Invariably, you will always find each of these areas in the paper, and therefore I was always sure कि मेरा पेपर एकदम खराब नहीं होगा. ऐसा नहीं होगा कि I went to CAT and I scored an 80 percentile when I was expecting a 95, right? So repeatability kind of increases. हाँ, अरिथमेटिक के पक्का 7-8 क्वेश्चन होंगे, कोई भी उठा के देख लो पेपर. Next is again, during our time there was no section limit, so there was a lot more scope for no, you cannot switch now. You cannot switch. It will be VARC, then LRDI, then maths. Also, what I did was I was very, very meticulous about revision and monitoring each topic. So when I say these are my strength areas, this was not because I thought it was so. I created a core data set which clearly showed that my attempt and accuracy percentages were high in these sections, and therefore, so I had Excel sheets. Also, I had prepared Word documents for different question types, which became my revision note. So basically, I had Word documents. Actually, I'm just saying this to be fancy. मैंने हाथ से लिखा था paper पे. But in your case, you can have Word documents. So what you do is, whenever you come across a mock, just note down that question. If there is a question which is a completely new concept, just note that down. Note that question down in the Word document. So when you're talking of revision, see, if you come across a question that you had not seen before, that means whatever material you're using does not cover that topic. So whenever you come across a new question, you will put that down in the Word doc. So when you're revising, you will go through that Word doc as well. Every successive revision will take lesser amount of time, and you will invariably with 2 or 3 revisions ingrain that idea. So if that does come out in CAT, you will be able to solve it. That is the idea. I'll talk about the Excel sheet. No, you should. Acha, 1 second, Dhruv. I'll talk about the kind of Excel sheet that I'm talking about, what you should do. Also, one more thing that I think helped me a lot was I tried to anticipate problems. Dhruv says, can you pause in full-time mocks? See, Dhruv, you can do whatever you want, but you should never do that. As a rule, if you're giving a mock, assume it to be your actual CAT examination, and therefore never pause a mock. If you sat down to give a mock, make sure you have 2 hours on your hand and give it at one stretch. Even if you're not feeling well, even if it is not going well, do not stop. Tell yourself that you do not have an escape option and you have to make it work. वो हैबिट हो जानी चाहिए. अगर मॉक देने बैठो तो 2 घंटे में अच्छा करके ही निकलूंगा, वो इनग्रेन कर लेना. सो नेवर पॉज अ मॉक. ओके, his base system important, Ranjit? नहीं, मेरे को खुद नहीं आता है, तो मैं क्या ही बोलूं, important है नहीं. So I was talking about anticipating problems. So while I was preparing, there were some certain things that I had done. For example, I had given mocks while standing up as well, because someone told me that when you go into a center, so we had a pen and paper thing, the table kind of wobbles sometimes. So I had practiced to stand up and give the mock. So if my table and chair were wobbling, I would still manage. Again, you don't have to do that, but what I'm saying is, Another important thing that I practiced was cracking a section in 60% of the time. So, so what you can do is you can choose one section for a mock. Of course, you will probably end up wasting that mock, but at least you will be better prepared for an eventuality. So you start the mock. Say in one of the mocks, you choose the English section. For out of the 40 minutes, for the first say 15 minutes, do nothing. Just sit down. Don't even read the questions. Then try to finish the mock in 25 minutes and see what kind of attempt you would make so that you reach the 90 percentile. This once you are touching a 90 percentile in the section. If there is a section जहाँ पे number ही नहीं आ रहे, वहाँ पे ये मत करना, because again अभी तो manage हो जाए वही बहुत बड़ी बात होती है. But try to understand what problems you might face in the exam, and while you're practicing, try to get that into your preparation as well. I think that helps a lot, because if you are prepared for eventuality, you will not lose your mind in the paper because you know you are ready, right? So that is something that I spent a lot of time on. DILR is not getting reflected as per preparation. What should we do? Sanket, there is a saying that goes, असफलता दर्शाती है प्रयास में कमी थी. Failure shows a lack of preparation. Again, not to say that you've not worked hard. All I'm saying is maybe the preparation has not happened in the right manner. It is not in the right direction, probably. Right. Also, LRDA scores will always be lesser than English and math scores in the current format. So don't take that into consideration as well. Talking about sectional strategies for VARC, I think anyone who's not getting a score in VARC, make sure that your initial target is of 30 marks. That is 10 questions net. For these 10 questions, there are two things that you can do. This is for specifically for people who are not getting a score. Someone who's scoring more than 30, of course, don't do this. Your strategy is working, and therefore stick to that. So the two strategies that you can look at is 2 passages plus VA. So here we are looking at accuracy. The second is do all questions. If you do all questions and there are 24 questions, you get say about 14 questions correct, which is about 56 or 58 odd percentage, actually 60% accuracy. You will still score more than 30, right? So that is the idea behind this. Attempting all questions when you are not sure. जब होता है कि मैं 2 ऑप्शन में अटक जाता हूँ, जब होता है कि मेरे को बहुत क्लोज गलतियां हो रही हैं, तो फिर यार शायद you're overthinking as well. That might be the case. Now, underlying assumption here is that content preparation has happened, right? You're not able to apply that in the exam, and therefore this strategy. So when you're attempting all questions, you will start thinking a little less, and therefore you will not make those mistakes of overthinking that you might be doing. Again, if that is not the case, तो यहाँ पे वो score नहीं आएगा 30 का, and therefore we will go into the content part from here. The other approach is, if you're getting decent accuracy, then stop thinking of attempting the entire paper. At the outset, you look at the VA questions. How you divide the time in that case is, typically, okay, I'll come to the time division, but चलो time division पे आते हैं उसके बाद. हाँ, तो 2 passage और VA वाले में, how do you choose the passage? Choosing the passage के लिए there are 3 things that you should look at. Number 1 is what the passage talks about, whether there is familiarity with this topic or not. और देखो मैं पूरे इसमें ना इस वर्ड को बार बार यूज करूंगा, familiarity. हो सकता है this might be a wrong word, but मुझे उसके बारे में पता है या नहीं. ठीक है. For example, if there is a science related topic, there is a very good chance I will attempt the topic because I have a science background. भले मुझे इंजीनियरिंग ना आती हो, लेकिन साइंस है तो समझ आ जाती है. वहीं अगर वो फिलोसफी होता है तो दिक्कत होती है, right? I am someone who during the preparation for, yes, absolutely, you can fill any gap. बहुत बड़े गैप होते नहीं है. There would be I think about 4 passages if all goes well. So the idea is about 7 minutes per passage. Yeah, what I was saying, भूल गया मैं. हाँ, तो because sociology पढ़ा हुआ है तो उसके बाद philosophy का थोड़ा idea लग गया. So now if there is a philosophy passage, I'm able to solve it. A huge change happened in my 2007 and 2000 CAT attempt. So I attempted CAT in 2007 and 8. Now this was pre my starting the MBA. This was my first CAT attempt. So here I had a issue with economic passages as well. So whenever they were talking about the monetary policy, fiscal policy, and all of that, I used to have issues, right? Then I gave my first CAT. I had a decent percentile. I had five IIM calls. I could not convert any, and I joined MDI. So for the next year, I was an MBA student, and then I rewrote CAT in 2008. That is how I got into IMA. At this point, I realized eco passages were not a problem because during my MBA, I was studying economics as well. So what I'm trying to say is, if you're someone who's not able to understand passages, then no, one is that you are doing reading from Aeon, one is you're attempting questions. In general, start to read about different topics. Sit down, Wikipedia page kholo and start reading about those topics. Once you are able to understand the basic meaning of the words that are usually used under that subtopic, your understanding will increase, and therefore chances of you understanding the passage will also increase. समझ रहे हो? So spend time reading. ये स्पीड बढ़ाने के लिए नहीं है. आई एम नॉट सेइंग यू हैव टू इंक्रीज योर स्पीड. ऑल आई एम सेइंग इज यू हैव टू हैव नॉलेज. Start reading the newspaper for that matter, because when you're reading the newspapers, you will end up reading many different topics. Just do one thing: whenever you're reading the newspaper, have your phone in your hand. So whenever you come across a new word or you know a conceptual word, just Google the meaning side by side. This will add to your knowledge, and therefore in the CAT examination you will see that you're able to understand more passages very clearly. All right. Second is the language used. If the language is closer to what you use, your comprehension will be better, and therefore you will be able to do more questions from that passage. And the third thing is question types. Typically, science related passages tend to have factual questions. Always attempt them. So when you read the question, it says, what is the writer trying to infer? What is the meaning of this? Again, if you are able to understand the passage, वो question होगा. But factual questions you can always spot and do. Even if you are not able to understand the passage, you start with the passage. आपने 3-4 मिनट पढ़ा, समझ कुछ आया नहीं, एक बार questions देख लो. If they are factual questions, you might spot that line and try to solve it. Right? So if the questions are factual, if the topic is known, and the language is something that you typically use, these are the passages that you should try to do. And therefore, if you are not able to attempt too many passages, you have to work on one of these areas. Typically, reading and trying to do different questions helps as far as RC is concerned. As for VA, again, while you are calculating your attempt, please do not count the theta questions. This is something that a lot of us end up doing subconsciously. I attempted 16 questions. 16 में से 4 थीटा थे. क्या fill in the blanks वाले जो होते हैं, type in the answer. आता मुझे था नहीं, मैंने attempt कर दिया. But when I'm calculating, I'm counting how many theta किया, right? So only count the theta questions that you actually solve, not the ones that you just put in, because that kind of skews your preparation. Because in my head, I'm thinking that I'm doing 2 RCs and I'm attempting all VA questions, but मेरा score नहीं आ रहा. In how many of these questions are you actually solving is what is important. There is a very distinct possibility that you might just be attempting those questions, right? So VA wale mein iska dhyan rakhna. Do not unnecessarily count theta questions, and para summary is critical. Typically a para summary has options. Getting para summaries right amongst the 3 types of VA questions that appear, getting para summary correct is the easiest out of the 3 because it has options, right? So please practice para summary from as many sources as possible. वो अगर 3 question 4 question तुम्हारे हर बार correct होंगे ना, तो अपने 10 नंबर तो पक्के हो गए. Especially for someone who's not getting a score in VARC, 10 नंबर अगर पक्के हैं तो एक पैसेज करके भी 20-25 पार हो सकता है, right? So please practice this while analyzing. Do not count your theta attempts especially unnecessary theta attempts. Yeah, what will be the time breakup? Typically, I think 1.5 minutes per VA question, and then you subtract that from 40 minutes and divide by n. So what I'm saying is, suppose there are 6 VA questions, so 6 into 1.5 becomes 9, right? So out of 40 minutes, 9 minutes will be spent on verbal, so 31 minutes are left. I will divide this by the number of questions, number of passages I'm trying to do. If I'm trying to attempt 4, that means I have got 7.25 minutes, actually 7.75 minutes per passage. That is almost 8. If I'm trying to do 2 passages, I have almost 15 minutes for a passage. Once you have your time limit, stick to this time limit. Being aware of the time is very, very critical. एक हम लोग एक्टिविटी करते हैं जहां पे हम बोलते हैं ये do this for yourself. So what you do is you open your phone, right? Phone on करके stopwatch on करना and close your eyes. Count till 60 seconds and then see कितना time हुआ. You will realize time in your head and the actual time are not matching. So as a habit, while you're giving mocks, make it a habit to keep glancing on the timer, right? ठीक है, pressure बनेगा. अब एक पॉइंट के बाद आदत हो जाएगी. When you know it is a normal thing in your paper, you will not be worried about that timer. And you will know if you are overshooting time, right? So this is the broad time division that I will take. 1.5 minutes per VA question. The remaining time is divided amongst RCs, depending on how many RCs you are trying to do as per your attempt strategy, right? Next. Yeah. What are the different things you can do? You can play around with the order. One is you start with passages and then go into VA. The second is you start with VA and then go into passages, depending on what kind of a engine you are. If you are a cold start, then I think it makes sense to start with passages, because you would be reading the first passage. By the time you'll get warmed up and you'll get into question mode. If you are someone who starts very quickly, you might start with VA and then get into RCs. But I think a better alternative could be, or a better option could be to alternate. So what you can do is you can do one RC, go into a couple of VA questions, do another RC, and then go into a couple of VA questions, and in that way go on. In any case, try that for when you are left with less than 8 minutes, do not pick up a new RC. Because hoga kya? You will read the passage, which will take 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 minutes, and then you won't have enough time to attempt the passage. So, koshish ye karna, if you have to start a passage in the end, it has to be when you have more than 8 minutes left. So, suppose 10 minutes are left in the paper, there is one RC and 2 VA questions left. Do these first. Do the RC first. When you are done with it, even if you have 3 to 4 minutes, you might be able to attempt the 2 VA questions. If you overshoot in the RC, even then you will have a time to at least attempt 1 VA question, right? So don't leave the RC for the complete end. That is one thing you can look at. This is a good way to go on, alternating. Also, one thing that I always do in CAT is, even in my mocks, the moment I get the I open the paper, I click on the questions to see how many questions or what is the structure of the paper. If it is not given in the beginning, I will always start with click on question 1, then click on question 4 to see whether that passage continues or not. Then click on question 6. So you will get an idea of how many passages, how many questions are there, and how many verbal questions are there. Once you have that blueprint, managing time becomes a lot easier, right? Because at every point, you know what is left. So even if you're spending a couple of minutes initially, it does not take more than a minute, minute and a half. Even if you're spending that to get a blueprint for yourself, that is completely fine. I actually tend to do that. I think it helps because there is clarity of what is left and what is the time left. All right. As far as LRDI set is concerned, again, the starting target for anyone who's not scoring in LRDI has to be 2 sets. If you are able to do 2 sets, there is a very good chance that you will get a good score. And whenever you start the LRDI set, again, be very sure of how many questions are there, what is the order of questions. For example, in 2020, for me, it was, I think, 4646. So I know how, which set I am attempting, what is the time left and what are the attempts left. When I'm attempting a set, I know, if I attempt a set, I'm not able to solve it completely. I solve the first 3 questions. I have to know whether there are more questions after it or it is over. Because suppose I solve a set and I'm able to solve it half, right? I attempt questions, I'm able to solve the first 3. If there is only 1 question left, then there is no point wasting time on solving the other half. But if there are 3 questions left, I might want to solve the other half as well. Therefore, again, first of all, see how many questions are there in each of the set. Second, for the first 7-8 minutes, spend time choosing the set. This is the best time that you can invest. There is no problem with it. If you're able to do it early or faster, not a problem. For anyone who is struggling choosing the sets, you can spend up to 8 minutes choosing a set. It is not a problem at all. Right? So, what kind of set you are looking at? Number one, the quantum of information. Typically, information too much or too less is a problem. If there are just 2 lines about the set given, that would be a problem because you have to figure out a lot of variables. If there are too many variables given, there are too much information given, then again, arranging it becomes a problem. So ideally, the quantum of information has to be between, should not be too much, should not be too less. Second is a very good idea of how difficult the question might be. You will get from the types of questions. If the question has options which say cannot be determined, in some cases even none of these, those are questions which typically will have more than one case in the solution. So those are questions that may be avoided in the first, at least in the first round. Okay. Second is the questions also tell you whether the question is deterministic or not. If there are questions which talk of if A works for Deloitte, then what happens? Again, in those questions, there will be more than one solution set possible, and there more than one case possible, and therefore those kind of questions will invariably take more time. Right? So unless you are sure, do not get into those questions. Also, what happens is if there are questions where the question is a if question and the options are cannot be determined, what you cannot also do is you cannot reverse engineer. If there is a set which is deterministic and I have options which are values, I can always put the value and try to reverse calculate and try to solve the question. But in this case, even this is not possible. So choose this kind of a set only when you know or you are sure of what you are doing. How do you divide the time? Again, as I said, up to 8 minutes if you're spending choosing the set, you will still be left with about 32 minutes. I am taking out 10 minutes from that 32 as well. So I'm left with 22 minutes. I divide that by the 2 sets. So basically the 2 sets that you choose should be such that you're able to solve them in 11 minutes each. Right? If you overshoot, you still have this cushion left with you. Do not panic. And once you have committed, it's a good idea to just pull it through unless you're not able to solve it. If you're solving a question and you're able to say get the first answer, then the second answer, then the third answer, there is a very good chance that you put in some more time, you'll be able to pull through the set. कर लो, कोई बात नहीं है. थोड़ा लेट भी हो तो 10 मिनट बाकी है. If you are able to solve 2 sets in 11 minutes, then these 10 minutes are there for you to try to increase your attempt, right? So basically what I'm saying is, I am taking out 18 minutes, dividing it by 2. So I have 11 minutes for a set, 8 minutes for choosing the sets, and then 10 minutes for any overshoot that happens. Or if for some reason I'm able to find other questions that I will be able to solve, that is where I put in. If my choosing set happens in less than 8 minutes, that time gets added in 32, right? Also, I typically feel that it's a good idea to do LR first, right? In any case, DI should not, DI can happen in the end as well. Because suppose again, towards the end of the paper, you have say 6 minutes left. You try to solve a few sets, हुए कुछ नहीं हुए, और end में सिर्फ 6 मिनट बचे हैं. अगर LR सेट होगा ना, हो सकता है क्रैक ना हो पाए. You might spend 5 minutes trying to arrange it. Arrangement हो गया, but end में time नहीं बचा. जैसे ही end में less than 6, less than 7 minutes बचे हो, it is time to go to a DI set. Because even if you're not able to solve the entire set, you will always be able to solve individual questions. एक ही question तो हो जाएगा ना DI का. तो 6 मिनट में कम से कम 1-2 क्वेश्चन करके निकल जाओगे. LR या तो होगा या तो नहीं होगा. So therefore, not a bad idea to keep LR first and then go to DI. And again, familiarity comes, the word again comes back. In the LRDI section, please do only what you know. Unless you are someone who's going to attempt the entire paper, जो सेट आता है, जो सेट किया हुआ दिख रहा है, उसी को करना. देखो, फर्स्ट फॉर अ पर्सन लाइक मी, इवन इफ आई डोंट डू वेल इन कैट, मुझे बहुत फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा. आई विल कम आउट ऑफ द पेपर एंड आई विल टेल यू यार मैंने तो अटेम्प्ट ही नहीं किया अगर मेरा पेपर खराब होता है तो. राइट, आई एम नॉट अप्लाइंग टू अ कॉलेज, बट फॉर यू इट इज मेक और ब्रेक. राइट, हो सकता है in that pressure, in that situation, there is a, I mean, there are very few chances you will be able to crack something that is completely new. Right, so stick to what you know. This will create problems in the mocks because sometimes mocks are skewed towards one or the other topic because there are only 4 sets that are to be made in a mock. हो सकता है यार मैं एक सेट, एक वेन डायग्राम का क्वेश्चन दे दूं मैक्सिमम मिनिमम का, एक अलग एलआर का क्वेश्चन दे दूं, एंड देयरफॉर यू माइट नॉट फाइंड योर नोन सेट्स एवरी सिंगल टाइम इन द मॉक. एक दो मॉक खराब होंगे कोई बात नहीं, उसमें आप अटेम्प्ट कर लो, बट जैसे आप कैट पे जाते हो इन योर एक्चुअल पेपर, ट्राई टू स्टिक टू व्हाट यू नो. जो आता है वो करेंगे, जो नहीं आता है यार वो अभी तक नहीं आया तो उस दिन कैसे हो जाएगा. Not worth the risk, because if you end up starting a wrong set, you might actually waste your entire 40 minutes और पता भी नहीं चलता है. This year it happened with one of my students 2021 में. So what happened was he was a slot one question, he was also giving the slot one. So his first question was the multiple case question. Then there was that LR question on arrangement, 8 people working in different departments. Then there was the question in which you were supposed to make the cross table. So there were people who had their friends and they knew each other, who cross table banana tha. And then there was a DI set, which was very, very simple. The 4 questions took about 3-4 minutes to get solved. He started with this set, was not able to do it, took about almost 11-12 minutes here. Then he came to this set, skipped it, came to the third set. He thought he would be able to do it in the next 12 minutes. He was not able to do this either. And therefore, since this was a 6 question set, he moved here. By the end of it, he was left with about 2 minutes. That is when he realized that there was a DI set which could have been solved. Because of that, his overall attempt in the paper was only 2 questions. His English score was also good, his math score was also good, but DI was completely finished. So stick to what you know what is your core area, and then attempt the paper. Again, be aware of the time, as I said, आदत पड़ जानी चाहिए, हर 5 मिनट में आपको एक बार घड़ी को देखना है. Make it a friend, something that you keep looking at, कोई problem नहीं है. Also, one more point is, if in the first 20 minutes you have not made any attempt, इसका मतलब है आप कुछ बहुत गलत कर रहे हो. आपका आधा पेपर चला गया, आपका एक भी अटेम्प्ट नहीं हुआ है. At that point, stop the section and restart. ठीक है, बिकॉज जो भी तुमने सिलेक्शन किया वो गलत हो गया है. यू आर ओवरबर्डन विद वन सेट या दूसरा सेट और वो हो नहीं रहा है, तो बेटर ही होगा स्विच ऑफ कर दो, बिकॉज जिस चीज को कर रहे हो तो एज इट इज नॉट बिल्डिंग अप टू एनीथिंग. सो इफ इन द फर्स्ट 20 मिनट्स, रिसर्च पेपर वाला, हाँ, इफ इन द फर्स्ट 20 मिनट्स you are not able to attempt even one question, not close the window, but shut yourself out for a minute and restart again. You probably would have done something very, very wrong while starting for the first time. There is a chance that you might actually revive the set as well. Happened with me in the 2016 CAT paper. So 2016 में क्या हुआ था? This I was writing a CAT after a long time. So this was the first time I got to the 100% time. I started the LRDI section. अब देखो, अपनी स्टोरी में तो सभी हीरो होते हैं, मेरी वाली में तो मैं था ही था, तो मुझे लगा था कि I'll be able to attempt all the 8 sets, मतलब बचेगा ही क्यों. So I picked up 2 sets which I knew were the most difficult sets. मतलब पहले इसको कर लेते फिर आसान वाला काम कर लेंगे. In the first 25 minutes I had not attempted anything, right? Because solve ही नहीं हो रहे थे, right? And therefore I started afresh and I said, okay, 35 minutes है, I can still do 3 to 4 sets, which should be a decent attempt. Then went through it. Eventually I was able to do about 6 sets, 5.5, 6 sets. But the point is, half the time no attempt means something has gone drastically wrong. Stop, restart. All right. Also, there is percentile तो 99.98 बना था, 99.98 बना. 6 सेट तो कर ही लेते ना. वही तो है, प्रेशर वाली बात है. देख, अगर मैं स्टूडेंट होता उस पॉइंट पे और मुझे पता है कि मेरा माय कॉल डिपेंड्स ऑन दिस अटेम्प्ट, probably नहीं हो पाता. बट मेरे को तो पता था ना, मैं तो ऐसे ही दे रहा हूँ, बाहर जाके बोल दूंगा नहीं अटेम्प्ट किया, मैं सिर्फ क्वेश्चन देख के आगे. बहुत सारे लोग यही करते हैं. आस्क देम पेपर कैसा था, बहुत आसान था, हम तो देखने गए थे, हमने अटेम्प्ट ही नहीं किया. अबे झूठो, अटेम्प्ट तो करके आए हो, नंबर नहीं आ रहे तो बता नहीं रहे हो. ठीक है, चलो एनीवेज, डू नॉट, आई एम रियली सॉरी, डू नॉट इवेलुएट 4 वर्सेस 6. ये बहुत क्रिटिकल सी बात है. while you are doing the DI, attempting the DI set, do not get into this कैलकुलेशन ऑफ 4 वाला करूंगा तो उसमें कम टाइम लगेगा, ये आसान होता है, ऐसा कुछ नहीं होता. द पर्सन हु इज सेटिंग द पेपर इज नॉट थिंकिंग ऑन दोज लाइंस कि 4 वाला आसान होगा, 6 वाला डिफिकल्ट होगा. देयर इज अ वेरी गुड पॉसिबिलिटी. हाँ हाँ हाँ, तो 40 मिनट्स में, वही बोलो ना, 40 मिनट्स में 20 मिनट, अगर आधे टाइम में कुछ नहीं हुआ है तो फिर शुरू कर दो. राइट, या. So there is a very good possibility that the person who is setting the paper has actually made the 6th question easier just to play around with you. So do not get into that evaluation. Stick to what your strategy is. कि मेरे को DI करना है तो मैं DI करूंगा. अगर मुझे जो सेट आता है वो करना है करूंगा. 4 क्वेश्चन वाला भी है तो चलेगा. And one more important point that a lot of people forget is 6 plus 4 is less than 4 plus 4 plus 2 plus 1. ठीक है, कहने का मतलब है more often than not, but you don't have the option of choosing a section. You will first do VARC, then it will be LRDA, then it will be QA. There is no choice of attempting a section. Yeah, so what I'm saying is we tend to classify this as sets. दो set हो गए. देखो, जरूरी नहीं है that you crack the set. In 2021 I was able to solve one set, DI set with 4 questions, one LR set with 6 questions. बाकी जो दूसरा 4 set वाला था उसमें मेरे 2 क्वेश्चन हुए थे, और जो 6 set वाला था उसमें मेरे 3 क्वेश्चन हुए. And therefore the overall attempt was about 15 questions. If I had wasted time here trying to complete this set, ये नहीं हो पाता. And if I had wasted time here, तो ये नहीं हो पाता. तो मेरा attempt कम हो जाता. So when I say that you are putting 11 minutes per set, तो अपने 2 set हो गए. We have attempted 8 to 10 questions. For the rest of the time, look for questions if not sets. Question देख लो, कभी कभी क्या होता है, invariably एक आध question ऐसा फंसेगा which will not require you to solve the entire set. Right? Games and tournaments, Venn diagrams, those are typical areas जहाँ पे you will definitely find one or the other question that will work. CAT 2018, CAT 2018, yeah. CAT 2018 had a question on coding decoding. So it says peacock is the national animal of India or something like that, and coding decoding was to be done. It was a very easy question, but 1 or 2 questions from those could have been solved without actually doing the entire coding, right? So if I'm able to do that in say 2-3 minutes, rather than spending 10 minutes doing 4 questions, if I'm able to say in 3 odd minutes pull out 2 questions, my efficiency will be better. So you are not looking at the LRDI section and going, okay, there are 4 sets, there are 20 questions. So even if you're doing 8 in a bunch, then look at individual questions to see where you can really extend your attempt. All right. Also, while doing the paper, do not get into the evaluation mode. There is a chance that one set may be enough. For example, CAT 2021 में, anyone who scored 17 marks in LRDI was getting the 90 percentile in that section. Okay, 90 percentile is less than 6 into 3. तो अगर एक सेट 6 क्वेश्चन वाला भी कर दिया तो भी 90 परसेंटाइल पार हो जाएगी. I want to know good math. अच्छा, sorry. ठीक है, तो while doing the LRDI set, don't think as to how you have done. You have done your best and that is typically good enough. All right. उसकी वजह से QA खराब नहीं करना. QA में again there are 2 broad strategies that you look at. One is जो use होती है, I personally tend to divide my paper into 4 quadrants, each quadrant being of 10 minutes. ठीक है. I do this because if I am not able to justify a question, मतलब या तो क्वेश्चन सॉल्व हो जाए या मुझे पता मेरे से नहीं होगा. If I am not able to do that, I am not able to move to the next question. Therefore, I tend to do this here because there are suppose 22 questions. What I will do is I will divide in the first 10 minutes. I'll try to settle about 6 questions, 7 questions, then 6 questions. So this becomes 12, and therefore 5 questions in the last 10 minutes. Always front load the paper. Front loading because if you overshoot time, you would have some cushion left in the last quadrant. All right. This works only when you are someone who's very, very aware of the time. नहीं, उसके बाद कोडिंग डिकोडिंग आया नहीं है. दिस विल वर्क ओनली व्हेन यू आर समवन हु इज वेरी वेरी अवेयर ऑफ द टाइम. अगर टाइम का आइडिया नहीं रहता ना, क्वेश्चन करते करते भूल जाते हैं, तो ये काम करेगा ही नहीं. Somewhere here you will end up losing track of time, and then all of this you will not be able to attempt. बाहर आके बोलोगे आसान क्वेश्चन थे, एंड में वो छूट गए. Right? So if you are someone who's very aware of the time, ये काम कर सकता है. Otherwise, what you stick to is doing questions in rounds. So first to do round 1 questions. In round 1, what you're doing is you're attempting all questions which do not require a pen. मतलब easy difficult क्या ही बोलूं इसको, जो क्वेश्चन करने में पेन यूज नहीं होगा वो इस राउंड में अटेम्प्ट कर देना है. अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट, मार्क क्वेश्चंस दैट यू थिंक यू विल बी एबल टू डू इन द रिमेनिंग टाइम. जो क्वेश्चन मार्क्ड है, अगेन दे हैव टू बी नंबर 1 फेमिलियर, दे हैव टू बी टॉपिक्स दैट यू आर गुड एट. डू नॉट वरी अबाउट कैलकुलेशन. कितनी ही बड़ी कैलकुलेशन आ जाए, लॉग का एंटी लॉग निकालने को आ जाए, तुम्हारे पास कैलकुलेटर है एग्जाम में इन कैट. So don't get bothered about numbers. Number बड़े दिए हुए कोई दिक्कत नहीं. For example, there was this question on compound interest which said amount after 2 years is 783 something. After 3 years it becomes 814 something. What will be the amount after 3 years? ऐसा कुछ question था. तो if I did not have the calculator, calculation would have been cumbersome. शायद ये question में end में करता. But यार calculator है, divide करके multiply तो करना है. How difficult can that be, right? So don't let calculations be the decisive factor. The numbers are, especially in CAT, right? Sumit, how many questions you are doing is important. If you're attempting say 10 questions, you have 40 minutes in the paper, so you have 4 minutes per question. I'm sure your calculation speed will not be worse than this. 4 मिनट में तो calculate हो ही जाता होगा, right? Problem ये है, आप सोच रहे 22 questions. जितना हो रहा है टाइम उस पर डिवाइड करो ना. लीव द क्वेश्चंस प्रॉपरली, अपने आप टाइम हो जाएगा. हाँ वही लास्ट है ना, तो वही बता रहा हूँ. व्हाट आई एम ट्राइंग टू से इज डू नॉट लेट दिस बी अ डिसाइसिव फैक्टर. कैलकुलेटर है, यूज कर लो, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. ठीक, हर बार एवरी ईयर 2 or 3 क्वेश्चंस आई एंड अप यूजिंग द कैलकुलेटर. ठीक है. Also, as a habit, always mark all the theta questions. मतलब fill in something in all the theta questions as a habit. If you are someone who's not attempting too many questions, तो theta question अगर आता है ना, उसमें कुछ तो लिखी दो, लॉस कुछ नहीं है. वो आदत पढ़ना जरूरी है. एनालिसिस में गिनेंगे नहीं, बट mark sure everything that you go across. Mark all the theta questions. And what is the time breakup? Typically 8, 25 and 7. So this is round 1. Here I am marking all the questions that I am able to do without a pen, and then marking the answer for these questions, and marking questions that I will attempt in round 2. The next 25 minutes I spend on solving the questions that I have marked, and then the next 7 minutes I will spend on questions that I was not able to do, the ones I marked, or questions that I did not mark. I will just spend some time and see if I am able to take out one or two questions from that book. So what is the question breakup? Typically, if I am able to do out 3 questions in the first 8 minutes, 7 questions in the next 25, and 1 question in the next 7, I would be able to reach the 11th question mark. Yes, in the first 8 minutes, you are going from question 1 to question 2, looking at which question you would want to attempt, and then in the next 25 minutes, you are attempting those questions. अनुश्रुति पक्का आएंगे, नहीं आएंगे तो मेरा कैट का पेपर भी घुस जाएगा. ठीक है, तो आई होप आ जाए, बट आएंगे, हमेशा आते हैं. पिक अप एनी कैट पेपर, दे आर ऑलवेज देयर, राइट. चलो, Intensity wise, typically 30 plus mocks if you're done, that is good. Whenever you think your sectional score is not improving, take sectional test. कहने का मतलब है, if you are someone, जैसे initially someone had written they're doing well in maths and LRD, English नहीं हो रहा, so there you can supplement yourself with sectional tests. Again, whenever you're doing sectional tests, take 3 at a time. वो 2 घंटे वाला आदत बना के रखना. So if you are just attempting English sets as well, make sure you do 40 40 40. मतलब do 3, right? उसके बाद उसको एनालाइज कर लेना. Revise topics. Typically, once you are done with your preparation and you are in mock mode, follow the 80-20 rule. So once you have completed the topic, at that time you are spending 80% of the time in strategy and 20% of the time in content. So this will be revision, feedback, whatever feedback you get from your mocks, redoing those topics and all of that. So this will be on strategy, this will be content. If you are someone who is not ready with the content, कुछ जैसे initially किसी ने लिखा था मेरा भी syllabus ही complete हुआ है क्या करूं, उस time पे इसको reverse कर दो. 80% of the time spend on content, 20% spend on strategy. That is mocks, right? So 80-20 rule follow करेंगे. अगर हम if we are still working on the content, 80% content, 20% mocks. If we are done with the content, 80% mocks and sectional test, 20% on content, right? That is how you would want to divide your time going forward. Also, please understand, ये important सी बात है. क्या लिखा है? Take a break if required. अगर लग रहा है बहुत ज्यादा intense हो गया, if you feel नहीं हो पा रहा, if you feel you are not enjoying the preparation, take a break for a couple of days. एक दिन 2 दिन, and do not fret about it after that. लग रहा है कि बहुत अच्छी कोई मूवी आ रखी है, देखना जरूरी है, अरे देख लो यार, कोई मतलब ये नहीं कि रोज का बना ले, but once in a while it is okay to take a break, recharge your batteries and then come back. Efficiency ज्यादा होती है, output ज्यादा निकलता है, right? And if you are taking a break, enjoy that break in the sense, एक दिन छुट्टी ली, मूवी देखने गए, फ्रेंड्स के साथ बात करी, उसके बाद 3 दिन ये सोच रहे यार एक दिन खराब हो गया, अब मेरा क्या होगा, वो मत करना. एटीट्यूड टेस्ट है. Therefore, you have to be in your best zone while giving your mocks. Okay. अच्छा, वो जो मैं एक्सेल की बात कर रहा था, देखो 2 चीजें करनी है. You have to have 2 kind of Excel sheets. Number 1 is score timeline. So what you will do is date wise you will write mock number, mock source, वो अपनी मर्जी, अगर एक सोर्स है तो लिखने की जरूरत नहीं है. उसके बाद for each section, so for VRC, questions, number, attempted, accuracy, ये 3 चीजें हर उसके लिए नोट करते चलेगा, right? Date wise. So you will see where improvement is happening, where improvement is not happening. Whenever you take an action, for example, मैं VRC का score देखा, तो my attempt was say stationary at 16. My accuracy was low, and therefore I did something to make it a 40%. On the right row, just make an entry of what you did for this to 20 to go to 40. What was the action that you took? So you will have an idea of how an action is affecting your score, right? So if this action is not good enough, you can try something else. इसका log बना के रखो. This has to be in front of you almost on a daily basis. पता होना चाहिए कहाँ जा रहा है. Even if you're doing a sectional test, put that in date wise. Do not make it a sectional test mock list. Make it a date list so that you clearly know where overall your sections were going over a period of time. When we sit down for a one-to-one analysis, या अगर आप मेरे को बोलते हो ब्रिजेश सर के पास जाते हो कि सर ये हो रहा है, we also get a better snapshot of कहाँ पे दिक्कत आ सकती है, क्या करना है. So please make sure you have this. What this will also do is it will tell you what your core section is. देखो मैं ये पहले भी बोला था, if you are trying to build percentiles, so 90 percentile happens at a score of about 60-65, 99 happens at a score of about 100. ठीक है. अब अगर there is one section in which I am scoring 45 marks, you can clearly see that 65 becomes almost sure. Even if I get a 10 and 10, I will get a 90 percentile. Similarly, here also, if I'm getting a 45 in one of the sections, for 100, I just need about 25, 27 marks in the other two sections. So when you have that list in front of you, you will identify what your core section is, which you regularly do well in, and what is the score in that section. For a high 99 percentile, what you need is you need two sections which add up to a 99 percentile. कहने का मतलब है, अगर if there are two sections in which your score is 100, you will get a high 99 percentile. If there is one section where your score is close to overall 90, you will get a 99 percentile, right? So if one section is core and my score in this section is close to a overall 90 percentile, that is around 60, I will end up getting a 99 percentile for sure. If there are two sections that are core sections where I score well regularly, if my sum in these two is equal to a 99 percentile overall, I will get a high 99 percentile. इस लिस्ट से ये दिख जाएगा कि कौन सा कोर सेक्शन है, कितना है और उसमें कितना आ सकता है. एक लिस्ट ये बनानी है. दूसरा, if you are giving mocks, तो you would have seen कि एक एनालिसिस आती है वेबसाइट पे कि यार इस टॉपिक में से इतने क्वेश्चन थे. I want you to make that list for yourself, right? Because when we talk of topics, we tend to quantify or divide those topics differently. किसी के लिए हो सकता है वो टॉपिक कुछ और हो, किसी के लिए कुछ और हो. फॉर एग्जाम्पल से मैक्सिमम मिनिमा का क्वेश्चन है, some of you might put in number system, some of you might put it in algebra, right? कोई हो सकता है एवरेज का क्वेश्चन है, उसको कोई नंबर सिस्टम अज्यूम करे, कोई उसको रेशियो अज्यूम करे. So depending on how you have prepared and how you classify topics in your head, the classification by a website could be different. So make this list for yourself and do it right after you've given a mock. तो ऐसा नहीं लगेगा तुम बहुत टाइम लगा रहे हो उसमें. It will not take too much time. What you're also, when you're making this list, deep dive into subtopics. Whenever you see an analysis, typically वो क्या बोलते हैं, the number systems, log, परसेंटेज, प्रॉफिट लॉस डिस्काउंट, एसआईसी वैसे क्लासिफाई कर देते हैं. अब हो सकता है मेरे लिए एसआई के क्वेश्चंस होते हैं, सीआई के क्वेश्चंस नहीं होते. I would want to see whether my SI attempt is good or not, and whether I am unnecessarily not attempting CI questions. So deep dive into subtopics while you make that list, right? So suppose मेरी list में I am making just a few entries. I'm saying arithmetic, number system, algebra, geometry. The moment I do a mock, and in that mock, suppose there are 4 questions from algebra, 3 questions from number system, 4 questions from arithmetic, and 6 questions from geometry. Suppose I will add that to my list, and from there I will see how many I attempted and what was the accuracy that I had in these sections. इसको सब टॉपिक्स में डिवाइड करोगे और आप अपनी लिस्ट वैसे बनाओगे. हाँ बिल्कुल, absolutely Sumit, not a problem. So this gives you a very good feedback loop. What to revise, how much to revise, whether I am good at the topic, whether I am bad at the topic, वो इस list से पता चलेगा. So in some time, this list will be the basic list for making a preparation strategy going forward. So अगर ये दो list तुम्हारे पास होंगे ना, people will be able to guide you better, if not yourself. कोई तुम्हें guide करेगा, better guide कर पाएगा. ये list बना लो. Going forward, this helps a lot, right? Since मैंने बोला था, I'll just also run you through my attempt वाला thing. एक second. Yeah. So this is my attempt sheet for CAT 2021. Okay. So what I did was, yeah. So what I did was, again, for me, the LRDI section is pretty clear, in the sense that, sorry, the VARC section is straightforward. What I do is I attempt all the passages and then go into VA. So that is what I did. Started with the passages. I'll be doing these for live mock starting next week. तो इसमें मैंने बहुत ज़्यादा चॉइस वाला क्वेश्चन किया ही नहीं था. मतलब there was no attempt to choose a set or anything. I started from one and then attempted the sets. तो इसमें बहुत ज़्यादा कुछ ऐसा है नहीं. I'll just come to LRDI and quant. Okay. कहाँ गया, एक सेकेंड. Yeah. So this is LRDA. I started with this set. Now this set is not something that I should have started with for the simple reason. Question number 1 says, what best can be concluded about the number of fruit salads sold in the first half? The answer are either 1 or 2, either 0, 1 or 2. So this question had cases that had to be formed. Even if you miss out on one case, you might end up getting the questions wrong. Therefore, this should not have been attempted. Right? मेरे एक दो सही हो गए थे, but again, as I said, ये जैसे this I was not able to make this case. कोई attempt ही नहीं हो पाया था. I wasted 12 minutes in this set, and my attempt was 2 questions. Actually, just one question. दो भी नहीं थे. Luckily for me, this was my second set, which was a DI set. Straightforward horizontal bars, took about 5 minutes to attempt, और सारे के सारे questions attempt हो गए थे. As you can see in the questions, all of the questions were definitive questions. There was no if, there was no either, there was no or, there was no cannot be determined. This is the kind of question I want to attempt for sure, right? Similarly, in the next one, as you can see, the information given is not too much, not too little. There were about 5 points given. So there is a very good chance you will be able to crack this kind of a set. For the last set, which had 6 questions, it had 9 points of information given. So as I said, too much information. I was able to just arrange half of it, and therefore half the thing I was able to solve, the other half I was not able to solve. So the best attempt here for me would have been, if I had started with the second set, done the third set, then attempted the fourth set, completed it, and then gone on to the first set, my attempt would have gone up to, I think, 6, 6, 12, 16, 17, 18 attempt हो, 17th attempt हो ही जाता, right? 2-3 question बढ़ जाते, but because I wasted a lot of time in the first set, I could not do that. As far as maths was concerned, again, just to show you what the round 1 questions are. Jैसे question number 1. One says an onion is sold for 5 consecutive months at the rate of 10, 20, 25, 25, 50 per kg. A family spends a fixed amount of money on onion for each of the 3 months, then spends half that amount for onion for each of the next 2 months. The average expense for onion for the family in 5 months is closest to. Now, it's a basic average question, but I will not be able to solve it outrightly orally. ऐसा मुझे लगा था. So for this question for me would be something that I will mark and say, okay, हो जाएगा, but second round में करूंगा इसको, right? Next says Amar Akbar Anthony working on a project. Amar Akbar completed in 1 year, and Akbar Anthony in 16 months, Anthony Akbar in 22 years. If the person is neither fastest nor slowest, again, बेसिक क्वेश्चन, बट ओरली नहीं हो रहा, तो इसको भी मैं नेक्स्ट उसके लिए रख दूंगा. फिर तो अरेंजमेंट वाला क्वेश्चन तो वैसे भी भगवान भरोसे होता है. If the area of a regular hexagon is equal to the area of an equilateral triangle, then the length, again, question हो जाएगा, but I will have to write the formula down once. So this becomes a round 2 question, right? Let us look at one round 1 question as well. Yeah. So, for example, this for question 9th, I assumed it to be a round 1 question because I just put values and checked. So mod of n minus 60 is less than mod of n minus 100. I just put values of n and checked, okay, this is the range that is getting. So this for me was a round 1 question. If there are options, this also could become a round 1 question. A circle of diameter 8 inches is inscribed in a triangle of 10, ABC 90, BC is 10. Then the area of the triangle in square inches is. मैं ये तो heated trial से ही किया था, ये वाला हुआ ही नहीं था. This, for example, again, I took it as a round 1 question because I could see the graph and therefore R points समझ आ गए थे, तो वो मार्क हो गया था. ठीक है. This again was a round 2 question. Again a round 2 question. ये तो गलती हो गया था अपना. हाँ देखो, जैसे ये वाला क्वेश्चन है 20, इसको मैंने राउंड 1 में किया था. या आई वुड हैव डन इट इन राउंड 1 बिकॉज एज समवन सेड ऐसा क्वेश्चन आया था कैट में. See, for this, all I am doing is I'm putting values in the calculator and solving. This will not take more than about 40 to 50 seconds. And therefore, for me, it is a round 1 question. As it is, if I'm to solve it, I won't have to write steps and do it. Therefore, round 1 question, right? This kind of a question will be a round 1 question, question 21, because all you're doing is you are putting values from the range and solving for the question for this. For example, x square plus 2x minus 15 upon x square minus 7x minus 8 is negative if and only if. There are four options given. So for example, if I take x is equal to 0, I check, I put the value of x in fx, it becomes positive. So if x is 0, then the answer will not be, x is equal to 0 cannot be the answer. So option 2 and option 3 are eliminated. Then I look at option 1 and 4. So option 4 says less than -5. I put that value here, check for the solution, and I know which the answer is. So this question for me can be done orally. So this becomes a round 1 question, right? So that is how you choose round 1 and round 2. What is a good attempt in quant? See, if you are someone who's looking at a 99 percentile, a score of 100, then I think quant has to reach at least 35, right? But even then, I think a score of about 25, 26 would ensure that you score more than 90 percentile in quant. So yeah, about 8 to 9 questions definitely. Also depends on the overall strategy. Yeah. So that is what I had to share. Thank you for your patient listening. Okay. What we will also do is, if you have given 3 or 4 mocks, please feel free to get in touch. We'll be doing one-to-one analysis so that we can plan out individual strategies for you to follow in the coming months. Also, starting next week, we'll be doing live mock analysis, in the sense I will be solving the mocks live, just to get a feel of what could be done, or how different people look at mocks and how they go about a paper. We'll be doing that starting next week. In the meanwhile, if there is anything that you think I can help you with, we can help you with, feel free to get in touch, drop in a message, write in the chat box. There's a very good chance that we will reply. If there is anything that I have missed, please, again, I am here to read your chats. Yeah. So okay. So I think that is all I had for today. Thank you very, very much for your time. All the very best, and hope to see you soon. Bye bye.